Okay, gang, here we go. Oops, let me switch screens. Okay, here we are. Welcome to everybody. It's 10 o'clock and we're going to start with an interlude, which I did once before. Let me see if I can orchestrate this correctly. Stop the share and then share again. And it just moved on the screens on me. Share screen. And what I want to share is right there. Share. And
did you know that Norway sells way more electric cars per capita than the US? Norway. Well, I won't stand for it. Come on. Never mind. With GM's new Ultium battery, we're gonna crush those losers. Crush them! Let's go, America. Keenan, Norway's out EVing us. Wait, what's this?
Oh, it's my daughter's birthday. She's really into pirates
I don't
lately.
care. Grab an EV, meet me in Norway.
Okay, can I say goodbye to my family?
Nope.
All right.
Aquafina, sorry to disturb you, but Norway's beating us at EVs.
Nuh-uh.
Uh-huh.
Nuh-uh.
Uh-huh. Meet me there in an hour.
Can I ride with you?
No! GM's Ultium battery is made for all types of vehicles, so soon everyone can drive an EV. Whoa!
Why didn't we all just go together?
Knowing Will, he's probably flying private.
Hey, Norway, listen up, you fish-loving! Oh, this place is adorable. Damn it. Where are you guys?
We're in Finland. Where are you?
I'm in Norway!
Norway? You're in Sweden.
Damn it!
so what I enjoyed about that, more than just the item itself, was the fact that EVs have gone prime time, and the progress that we've been talking about that needed to occur for so many years is finally there.
So that was a Super Bowl commercial, Jerry.
That was a Super Bowl commercial.
Yeah,
That's exactly right. When I saw it, I was surprised. Okay, let me get in the right context.
Also, that he called the Norwegians a bunch of losers.
Yeah, but John has.
Oh, but you know what? Norway's had a rejoinder to it.
Go ahead.
And they go over all of the things that are very nice about Norway, so that we do not have.
Yeah, and you guys did say I sent back to you. The population of Norway is about 5.6 million people. The population in the Bay Area is 7.8 million people. So the degree of the complexity of the problem is different. And as we've seen before in previous presentations, Norway actually funds all of this by selling oil. Okay, let's start with introductions, who you are, how you to get around. I'll start with me because I see myself. I'm Jerry Glazer. I'm driving a Nissan Leaf. And trying to spend more time with it and keep thinking about getting another EV. Ray, you're up on the screen next.
I'm Ray Alden. I own a Tesla Model S, vintage 2018, and I drive a golf cart.
Alan Soleil.
Okay, I am Alan Soleil. I drive a Tesla Model 3 when I drive, and hopefully later this year, we'll be able to do some more driving.
Okay, David Heacock.
I'm Dave Heacock. I've been driving my wife's 2007 Saturn Vue Hybrid because my 1985 Avante electric that I converted is still in the shop, but it looks like maybe next week I'm going to get it back, and that's what I'm looking forward to driving again.
Okay, John Pomerly.
Yeah, I'm John, and I work at Thunderstruck Motors, where we often used to meet. And I drive a Geo Metro that little green Geo that you may have seen that has a leaf motor conversion in it. It's quite a nice car.
Okay. Next on my window is Bill. You're on mute.
Yeah, I'm Bill Baldavich. We have a 2015 Kia Soul with about 45,000 miles. And during the pandemic in the last 6 months, I've noticed a precipitous drop in the range. So I guess I'll have to figure out what it is. It's not the tires. And I'll be looking for a new EV pretty soon, I guess.
Bill, typically, I've noticed with mine all the time, I'm always concerned by it. It's the winter.
Well, I don't know that I didn't notice it in the previous 3 or 4 winters.
Well, the other thing, I don't know about Kias, but Teslas judge your range about how you've driven recently.
Yes, exactly.
So if you took a good, like drove down to LA or something, I think you might find that the stated range is a little different than what it is now.
And the other thing I have noticed is this, the pressure in my tires during the winter is about 4 pounds lower than it is in the summer. And I haven't added the pressure because I expect to come back up again. But Mark, you're up next.
Yeah, Mark Brumbaugh, 2013 RAV4 EV. I must say I was in Norway for a few weeks 2 years ago. And if I remember right, because I talked to some of the people there, they said that there's a terrible tax on gas cars or diesel cars there and not tax on the electric. Plus they get something like 90% of their electrical power comes from hydro power. So they're really pushing that. And you're right, they do sell all at oil, so they get money.
Yeah. Mike, you're up.
Morning, everybody. So I'm Mike Newell, and actually either this weekend or next, we are going to turn in our plug-in Kia Optima for a Kia Niro. So we've pretty much settled on that one as the next EV for our family.
Oh, great. Bruce?
Yes, so my get-around car, except for today, because it's got 8 inches of snow on the roof, is a used e-Golf. And Alan will be happy to know that the Roadster got a brand new car cover, just arrived 2 days ago. I put it on last night, and now there's about 5, 6, 7, 8 inches of snow on top of it. So it's not going anywhere for a while.
All right. Andy Mendell.
Hello, anything with batteries. Everything has batteries. Scooters, bicycles, got a Tesla Model 3 high performance in the garage, but it never goes anywhere. We'll talk more about bikes in a little bit, but once you start riding a good electric bike, you just don't want to be on anything else.
Yeah. Marcus.
Good morning, I'm Marcus, and I have a Cadillac ELR plug-in and a Chrysler Pacifica plug-in. And right now I'm actually going to start doing some research for my uncle. He has a 1993 Land Rover Defender, and he wants to convert it to electric.
Oh.
So I might try and reach out to John here and maybe get some information started for him. So.
Al McLaughlin.
Al McLaughlin, Petaluma. I do a lot of walking, and I've got an I-Pace.
Okay. Andy Ferguson.
Andy Ferguson, I'm in Petaluma, driving a Model 3 and a Volt.
Lowell.
Yeah, Lowell Ansa. In Sebastopol, I drive a 2014 Tesla Model S, and I have, but didn't drive much less, my 2013 Leaf. By the way, I just got an email from a cycling friend saying that there's an article in Cycling News saying that a California congressman is introducing a bill to create a tax credit for the purchase of electric bikes, a $1,500 tax credit. And I will pass the link on to you for as a future news item.
Sonia, you're up.
Hi, Sonia Carey. Drive a 2019 Model 3, and we've got a 2014 Chevy Volt. Tor's not here today to represent Norway. And I also wanted to ask him about his new Chevy Bolt purchase, because I was kind of curious about Chevy batteries and degrade. So if anyone wants to say anything about that in the chat, I'd be curious. My Volt batteries doesn't appear degraded because apparently wherever the degradation happens, you don't see it in the mileage.
Don.
This is Don Boulevard. I'm actually on assignment in Cincinnati right now, so dealing with the middle of winter. And I have two Chevy Volts with a V for victory. And I don't know, Sonia, if that was your question, if it was on the Volts, but the Volts only exposed the very early generation ones only gave you I think it was a 60 to 65% of the battery that they allowed you to go into at all. So they give you 10.4 megawatt or kilowatt hours on a 14 kilowatt hour battery. So you're only into it. So there's been no degradation on them because they guard band both ends of it. I think Alan talked about how they do it on the Teslas, that you stay within that 15 to 85% range. The Volts manage that for you. So I haven't seen it at all.
Thanks for that. I forgot how big the padding on either end is.
Yeah, it's big. There was one Volt here in Cincinnati. The guy he commuted from Cincinnati to Columbus or some crazy thing, but he turned like 3 years ago, he turned his first gen Volt 400,000 miles, all on original battery with regular maintenance. So I think he's now since retired that car, but that was a big Volt story a few years back.
Your number on the 400,000 miles is interesting from a Stanford talk, where one of the things that they said was the issue as to how many cycles on a battery were necessary. Everybody was talking about 3,000-4,000 cycles are necessary. In reality, if you look at 400,000 miles, less than 2,000 cycles is required, and most of the batteries do that today. So we're in the zone.
We're in the zone. We're there. Yeah.
Zeno.
I live in Sebastopol, Zeno Schweiting. I probably do a lot of biking these days. I do have a car. It's a 2008 Honda Insight. It's a hybrid. I don't know whether anybody of you are familiar with that kind of car. And yeah, so I have kind of a problem because I'm driving less and less, and my car still works fine. And if I would get an electric car, there would be quite a number of miles before it actually would catch up with me in terms of greenhouse gases. So at what point, I'm 71, how many years do I have an electric car, right? So I don't know, that's my equation. I haven't solved my equation.
Yeah, and I do know that car because when we were driving back in the 90s, when driving the Honda EV Plus, Honda had invited all of the EV Plus drivers in the Bay Area to convene in San Francisco at the Moscone Center. And they were rolling out your car saying, don't you guys all want to buy this hybrid? And we asked, where do you plug it in? And they said, well, you don't need to plug it in. And everybody left.
Yeah, when it was young and vigorous, it made about 65, 70 miles a gallon. So it's now probably around 53 or so.
Yeah. You and I should look. There was a paper recently that I just finished reading that was talking about exactly what you're discussing as far as when's the payback period on your car from a greenhouse gas point of view on a new purchase for different types of cars as well. Stan, you're up. But that's weird. You're not muted. Your lips are moving and there's no sound. Okay, You want to try again? Okay, he's going to come back again.
Just mute and unmute. Mute and unmute. It'll work.
What?
If he mutes and unmutes, it should work.
Does it work yet, Stan? All right, we're going to jump to Ellen, and if you can get your voice through, then we're going to raise our hands and say we hear you. Ellen, you're up. Ellen, you just went from unmute to mute.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Thanks. I was eating my breakfast, so I didn't want to go on the photo thing. I'm still driving my 2018 Leaf, which I still love. It's a wonderful, wonderful car. And I'm still wanting to get a truck, but I don't want one of these big, huge trucks. I want a smaller electric truck.
There used to be smaller electric trucks back in the turn of the century.
Yeah.
I don't know if they're still out there, but yeah, if anybody, you're in the discuss group, you might send that out and see if anybody has alternatives they've run into.
Okay.
Right. Cecilia.
Hi, I'm Cecilia. I drive a 2018 Model 3, and I also will soon be driving a Lego electric vehicle.
Okay. By the way, you should notice I made you a co-host as well. That was something you had suggested months ago, and I finally understand how to do it, and I also understand the need. So anytime you or John can help in getting the session to run correctly, let me know or take control. Chapter business, I haven't changed the slide. We have more people who have joined on the a Google group. I don't have access to NBEAA, the EAA to get the numbers, and I haven't gotten an update yet on what our balance is, but I presume it's higher than it was before because we haven't been spending much money. Just a reminder, you do get this message, and I will send it again at the end of this meeting for the next meeting, to send news notes that you see. Just respond to it, send a link, and why you think the article that you found is interesting. You don't have to change the subject or anything. If you change the subject, it gets disorganized a bit, but I take all of those about 2 weeks before our next meeting, and I organize them all, and then I start reading all the articles if you haven't said enough in your write-up in order to make up a slide for each one of those. So this is really important stuff in order to make it easier for whoever's doing the program, and we'll get to that in a second too, to do the program. And Cecilia helped me a lot in reorganizing the groups site for NBEAA team to make it a little bit easier to put that material together. It was quite a change for me. Consider doing a presentation. We have somebody booked, hopefully, Alan, for next month, but beyond that, we don't have any speakers, and it's been fun having the speakers. And we've gotten a lot of new members from even further than Washington State, like the UK, because the presentations have been good and people have enjoyed those, and they've been looking at them. And again, Cecilia helped me get into YouTube, and all of our videos are posted on YouTube, and people are going and actually looking at them. New chapter president. Nobody volunteered this entire month.
So let me just explain what the deal is here. If all anybody wants is this monthly show, it will cost, without a president, it will cost somebody's $150 a year. And that's it. But if we get to the point with this pandemic where we want to do some outreach of some sort, we will not be a chapter. Without a president, you cannot have a chapter in the Electric Auto Association. So when you're not a chapter, that money that Sonia just asked about, boom, gets split up to all the other chapters. Any insurance that would be available to cover that outreach program is gone. It's non-existent. So those are just a couple of the things that we would give up if there's not a president. And I have to tell you, as of just after next meeting, I'm not going to be president anymore. So that's the situation.
I'll pipe in also. When we put together the a program team, I think the expectation was that we would work together to put the programs together. And I have had help, but I will admit, I block out 2 days a month, 2 full days a month in order to put the program together. And I find it worthwhile for me, but it would be great if more people were participating with that and helping with pieces, even if it was the matter of, oh, I'll do 4 slides or I'll do 2 slides. You know, there's a pattern that goes with this. I'll do presentations. I'll help find another speaker. And I haven't been great in finding speakers, and I found a couple, but you know, that's part of the activity that needs to be done with the program. And we also have another group, which is the press group. And so far, Alan's been doing all the press, which is the outreach and all of that. And that should have been a group that's doing it. And we haven't had a group. We've had volunteers when we have an event like, you know, Earth Day to go out to the site, but somebody has to organize that stuff, or some group has to organize that stuff. So we're going to try again this month to look for volunteers. If I volunteer to be president, I might do that just because of what Alan just said is the issue. But Alan was president and did the programs for 4 years, 5 years?
8 years.
Seem unfair.
8 years, except for the 1 year that Bruce did it.
Whoa, okay, 8 years. Okay, so
Can I add something? I mean, I like to volunteer in some capacity, do something or assist anybody. But I can imagine that it's somewhat daunting to be called president suddenly of a group that you haven't really volunteered in, or be on the board for. So that may be part of the hesitancy that the group today has, that they may have done something, but they feel they're not prepared, or so maybe the question is not just finding a president, but thinking about like succession and kind of flow of talent within the organization, that kind of thing.
it's interesting that you said that, Zeno, because if you take something like the Master Gardeners, the way the Master Gardeners do this is they have a president, and then they have a vice president or co-president, whatever. And that's the next president. And
right.
The president for a year, and the vice president knows that they've signed up to be president for the year after that. And this way you have a succession. And they have fairly large boards too, but they're a much larger group than we are as well. We're 130 people. So, you know, typically the 30 of us show up for the monthly meeting.
I have another suggestion, which is one of the burdens that fall on the people doing the program is they're gathering and accumulating news items to share with the club, and that takes some time. One of the things that I've been involved with other groups, which has precluded me from doing anything in this group of any meaningful sense, and but I want to do more. So what I did was I tried to start paying more attention to news items, but I found that my news feeds were not as good as yours are. One of the things I'd like to review is possibly the idea of everyone being on some major news feeds and everybody be responsible to try to stay up with current events and bring topics for discussion. Instead of necessarily having one person organize those news events, have the group contribute to just bring up and talk about news.
That's good, Andy, and that is what indeed what we tried to do 2 years ago. And I have help on digging through some of the pieces. And quite frankly, very few of the news items are ones that I dug up. You know, Alan, president or not president, must read a shitload because he sends in about 20 of them. And the only part that that is taking me a lot of time is the link to the article is there, but why is it interesting? What's the background to that? And it's beyond just reading the article. It's read the article and then it references something so that you can fill in the blanks on that. And that's the fun part about doing this stuff as well. Yeah, I'm willing to leave the topic for now. We'll look for other volunteers during this month. We'll bring it up in the next monthly meeting as well. And I'll continue doing the programs. You know, for now, we do have a team that does the programs, and if other people want to jump in and take segments and put them together, you know, putting the deck together once the information is collected is pretty easy. I mean, that doesn't take that long. It's reading the articles and finding out why is that significant, how's it fit, and stuff like that. And maybe I'm on both the discussion group as well as NBEAA team. I don't think I'm on press, but I don't think anybody's on press. So that's part of the issue.
Oh, right. I just wanted to add, I like the ideas that Zeno and Andy put forth. Also, I was just thinking, you know, if we were really clear that it was a one-year position, Alan did an extraordinary job going so far over, way beyond any Call of Duty. And so if it was clearly just a one-year stint, and like Zeno said, you know, we had somebody in the background that was willing to take that on, then that would be kind of knowledge in advance. Or it even could be a floating position that had no particular meaning except that we were listed, you know, for the national organization, and the team was actually the president. And also, one more point I would make is that this idea of of the president or whoever is doing the presentation has to do all of the research behind topics that are brought forth. Well, let's just take a little more responsibility, and you know, like I think Andy, you said, just really get every month. Let's put out the resources that we have that anybody knows, and then everyone can take note and really be responsible for giving a good page to the presentation without the president having to then follow up and do all the research. Anyway.
Well, that's easy for me. I do just get, it's really only 3 or 4 news feeds that have all those, most of those articles anyway, that I send to Jerry.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's not a problem.
Yeah, well, give us all those and we'll just keep, I think I like the group oriented, you know, research team. And,
well, even if you can on the reminder that I send each month, the reminder says, and put the bullets as to why you think that this is interesting or important. Yeah. I mean, give me all the bullets in your reading. That's a slide. I'll go to the site, pick up the picture, drop your bullets on it. I will admit, a lot of the reading I do because that's part of my interest, and so I do dig a little bit deeper into it. I don't think there's a single one of these links where I don't go to 4 or 5 links past that one to find out what the background was. I mean, if somebody wrote an article on it, I go to check and see where'd they get their information from, just to make sure that it's good information before we drop it here into the meeting. So Caleb has volunteered to be president for the next year. So shall we vote now?
By acclamation.
Yeah. I think we should, as soon as we go back to live meetings, you know, I'll be sure to show up at least once a year.
Well, by the way, now Caleb has now moved from Washington State, now lives in California again. However, is living in Southern California. So,
well, let me clarify this. As far as the EAA goes, the only thing that you do is have your name listed as president. As I said before, I don't do anything with the EAA. I mean, nothing. So,
you know, Alan, I know you're saying that, but if if we do get a volunteer, I mean, that's the reason I was hesitant, because I belong to the South Bay EAA for 15 years, more than 15 years. I never went to a meeting. And quite frankly, you sent an announcement up when I transferred to this chapter, and you were meeting at the coffee shop here in town. And I said, oh, I can't make it that time, but I'd love to go again. And then you told me where the meetings were. And I have missed one meeting since. This is a really strong club compared to an active, and it would be useful for us to be well connected with national, I think. I think the programs we have are pretty good programs.
Well, that's more a function of national than it is of us, I think.
Yeah. Okay, let me go on to the next slide. All right, so Caleb, you haven't done it yet, so here. The previous meeting, we picked up a session on QuantumScape, and there's been a lot more news on QuantumScape since. I've already told you what happened with the stock prices. By the way, I have made more money on it since, even though I don't own the stock yet. And here come the events. They're coming up. John, you sent this in. You want to talk to it?
Can I ask a question before we start? So are these links available in another way?
Yeah, there's multiple places where the links are available. If you belong to the NBEAA team, which today I think is Sonia, Alan, John, Lowell, me. I'm not sure who else is on that list. All of the messages back and forth about, I just saw this being submitted for the program coming up. Those are all there. The second is, on every one of the decks that we do, at the bottom of each page where there is a link that is useful, the link is there in the PDF, which is included on our drive. And to find the presentation for that month, you can go to our homepage, thanks to Cecilia, and there's a link to the presentations, not just the videos, but the presentations themselves. And if you click into that folder, and that's open publicly, open that folder, you can get the presentation, go down to what you're interested in, and click on the link, and it'll take you right to it.
Hey, Jerry, this is Al McLaughlin. Can you go back to the QuantumScape thing for a second? I just wanted to say, I heard you guys talking when I joined about cars and what electric auto group the best to invest in besides Tesla and all that stuff. And I've been in the QuantumScape before, obviously Tesla and others, but I have found personally, for what it's worth, that ARK, A-R-K Invest, you can Google it, ARK, A-R-K space Invest, they have some ETFs that follow disruptive technology. That's all they're interested in. They're about 7 years old, and they've been into Tesla since the beginning, and they're looking for other EVs that they might want to invest in. They have a very open research group. You can look at all their research. Anybody can, and they're not investing in QuantumScape.
You know, Al, excuse me for interrupting, Al. This is, we're supposed to be talking about EVs, not investing.
Right. Yeah.
So
yeah.
I'd rather not
nervous about this.
discussing that.
Yeah, I'm finished anyway, so no problem. Thanks.
All right. All right. Zeno, did that help?
Well, it's a bit deeply hidden somewhere. I wonder whether there's so much work that you put into this and other people.
Yeah. And I'll tell you what, offline afterwards, I'll contact you and I'll show you where, because we covered it in the last month as well, because people kept saying, can somebody, I want so-and-so to join. And all of that's on our homepage, thanks to Cecilia's work. Now, one of the things I should point out, there's a web group. The web group is fairly small too. 90% of the work that's being done or has been done, 99% of the work done by the web group has been done by Cecilia. And part of the issue with that is that we probably need to move to a different provider to make it easier for the authoring. So she's done what she can do with the tool available. So if it's a little bit difficult to see, then that's
like a simple thing you could do. You could put the link to this document that has the links on the YouTube page where you post the video.
Well,
so you have a link there below the video that has the link to.
Okay, that's fine. Then as soon as I learn how to do that, I will include it. So a lot of this has to do with my ignorance. John,
Well, just that the previous meetings link on the homepage of the website is pretty easy. It says previous meetings, and you click on that, and then you can go into different meetings, I think, right? So I don't know, that's there. You might try it. I just tried it now, and it's there.
I haven't heard anyone say the website name, nbeaa.org.
Very good.
So if you go to nbeaa.org, there's two huge buttons on it. One's to join and the other's to look at the previous meetings.
Right, and there's another button that says to look at the videos.
Well, my point is not that it's not, you cannot find it. My point is more that I feel this is such a great resource. You want to push it out there to the public. So if you post your video on YouTube, you also want to post a link to your underlying document for this part of the meeting.
Oh, okay. And as soon as I learn how to do that, then I'll do it. By the way, the owner of the YouTube channel is NBEAA 2018, right? 19, which was the user ID that Alan established in order for us to make up the group. For the NBEAA team, there's help documents on the group site that shows how to log into everything. So were I to be run over by an EV tomorrow, all the information on how to access everything is there. Right? John.
Oh yeah, I wanted to say that one of the problems with sending something like this in is then you forget about it, and then Jerry says, "Oh, John, this is," and I'm going, "Oh." So yeah, I just got an email from Sonoma Clean Power, and it was kind of cool that they had what appeared to be their effort to educate the general public about EVs. So this is a place I think you can have people go. I haven't looked over it carefully. That's the thing. It warrants some review. But what I saw, it just seemed like a nice resource for people that are green, green on being green.
Yeah, and they actually have classes on a number of different topics as well. And it's all part of their outreach and their store, which I don't know if it's opened yet. And I've just lost his name, the fellow who's responsible for that effort.
Cordell?
Hmm? Somebody say something?
Alan said something.
Is it Cordell? Are you thinking about
Cordell? It's not Cordell. This guy reports to Cordell, but he's not. I think he reports to Cordell. When I see his name, he and I've had multiple correspondence because I argued some points with him, as I do with most of these people. Plug-in America, I get their newsletter. They are a chapter of the EAA as well, and they're looking for us to send emails to Congress pushing for more support for EVs. Into the news. Solar credits have been extended. There was a planned reduction in solar credits at the federal level, and this is now just shifted all of that by a 2-year period so that we stay where we are. And after that, it ramps down on the solar credits. Now, the solar credits also include not just your solar panel, but your batteries. For instance, for me this year, I installed solar and batteries on my house, and it's not a deduction, it's a payment on your taxes. So it's a direct payment. I thought it was interesting as part of the information I got out of that article that there's 1.3 million homes in California that have solar, but only 30,000 of them have batteries. And most of the installers today are going back to where they've installed solar and said, you really should have batteries too. And once again, the solar installs have exceeded 2019, even though there's been business slowdowns. And then on the right-hand side is my solar panel for 3 days last week, which blew me away because it's telling me that I'm generating in the winter more solar than I'm consuming. So I expected it in the summer. I've had solar in my house in Sunnyvale since 2006 without batteries. And this one, I actually programmed, I programmed my batteries differently than the installers recommended, so I could reduce my costs even further. Joe Biden, did somebody send this one in? I won't speak. Yeah.
I sent it in, yeah.
Actually, you probably speak to most of them, Alan. Most of them you sent in, I think.
So yeah, this is, I'm sure everybody heard about this. It made the news on the major media outlets. But it's, you know, it's a great goal to shoot for. I read about it in a couple articles, and it didn't give a schedule. I have to assume that when a vehicle gets retired, it will be replaced by an electric car. That's what my assumption would be. And they're also the post office. I don't know how much anybody pays attention to those delivery trucks that the post office uses, but they're like 30 plus years old.
Yeah,
and those, they need to be replaced. And if that isn't a perfect use for an electric vehicle, I don't know what it is. I a few years back asked our local delivery post person and how many miles she drove. She said it was like 38 miles or something. I mean, so it doesn't take much of a battery. The stop and start doesn't, you know, there's no pollution created by that. So they really need to work on that.
Yeah, and you're further out of town than I am, and you know, probably my post person probably drives 3 miles a day.
Yeah, yeah.
Is it true? Does anybody know if it's true that Workhorse is the only bid that's fully electric for those postal vehicles?
So probably Caleb and I can both answer that one. There was a previous, before Biden, previous RFP by the Postal Service for electric vehicles. A number of companies responded. So building these trucks is not that difficult, and tooling up for them is a 3-month project, to be honest, for the body. So it's the chassis, then the body. And I believe the reason it got killed was the money that was available was for a 100-mile range. And then when the responses came in for the 100-mile range, what the cost was, the Postal Service basically said, the money made available is for 100-mile range, but we really want a 50-mile range. And so the grant money that was made available to the postal office was for one thing. So nobody responded because the cost was too high. The postal office, the Postal Service didn't buy anything. Is that your recollection as well, Caleb?
Yeah, that's exactly right. The RFP went out for not the right spec, essentially.
Yeah. So no, there's a number of companies who can do this. Just the one article said Workhorse is already submitting, and others haven't necessarily submitted. It's not clear that the revised RFP has been sent out yet. Although 100 miles now is becoming a lot more cost effective than it was, 5 years ago. And there's a Biden plan to add 500,000 EV stations, and Clean Techna has been sending a response as to, oh, you ought to put them in these places. So these are the places they've identified so far. And there's a link down at the bottom where you can submit and say, yeah, we need one in this place too. Alan, you want to speak to this, or you want me to cover it?
Let's see if oh, that's right. This is the incentive to purchase, well, two things, for large trucks and buses. And it's now been renewed, as it says here, for $25 million. And then also there's the Clean Cars for All has a $3 million grant to help low-income Californians purchase an EV. So that's all good.
Yeah, and what I thought was impressive is that $2.5 billion has already been used in this. On the HVIP, both Caleb and I are familiar with that as well, because most of the customers for Motive filed for HVIP. And originally that's when you buy the vehicle, they give you cash to buy the vehicle. Depending on your circumstance, the vehicle and other things, it could be at one time was up to $150,000 for. And when you say larger, these were basically most often close to class 4 vehicles. And I'll have a later slide on that.
Yeah, they had to be. They had to be over 14,000 pounds.
Right, so had class 4 and higher.
Yeah.
One of the folks that we know, one of our friends, kept saying that's not enough, that's not enough. And John Clement said that Irby was instrumental in coercing legislation and CARB to change the number from $150,000 to $250,000. So a lot of these people were getting free trucks and buses.
Yeah.
And that's all on HVIP. I don't remember where I got this one from either. MIT study on lifetime costs on EVs. I didn't cut from the article. I thought showing the chart itself was good enough. Oh, that's right. So Zeno, this is indeed what I was thinking of, where it was part of the answer to your question. But also there was another chart. Yeah. Average grams of carbon dioxide per mile. And that includes, these grams, according to that article, includes the grams of carbon dioxide result of creating the vehicle. So it's consumption and the creation of the vehicle itself, as far as what the costs were. And so you can figure out from there when the payback period ends up showing up. But I thought it was an interesting chart, and it shows where straight EVs fit and the various different EVs. Good article.
Yeah, there's one dimension to this. That if you buy a new car, I don't know, it loses what percentage of its value if you drive it off the lot?
Yeah, I mean,
so if you really go into kind of a more economic thinking around this, you need to really contextualize it in a deeper way.
Yeah, part of this was interesting. In the Discuss group, I think I sent this out to the Discuss group. A friend of mine was thinking of buying a used EV because he always buys used vehicles because the value of the vehicle drops so fast, but the capacity of the vehicle doesn't. In the EV market, his wife decided she really wants a Tesla. She likes, and the answer was, is it the performance? No, I like what it looks like. So he can't talk her out of a Tesla. In fact, can't talk her out of a Model 3. Model 3s are not losing their value because of the way Tesla handles that, I believe, right?
Yeah, I got the first Model 3 delivered in Atlanta, Georgia. I drove it for 15,000 miles, had it for a year and a half, and all I lost was the sales tax. I basically sold it for what I paid for it, after the credits. So it was a free car.
Sonia's recommendation was buy a new one. It's not going to cost you that much. Okay, so you saw the video, but this article came in too. Norway does it first. Norway at an annual level sold more battery electric vehicles as new cars than they did anything else, a combination of everything else. So this wasn't even hybrids. In the month of December, it was even higher. It was something like 67% of the cars sold in the month of December were electric vehicles. And their forecast is that they'll be above 65% of the new vehicles sold in the next year will be EVs as well. We did cover last month or 2 months ago the efforts by Norway and by Hawaii in order to make this happen. And Norway was successful and Hawaii was not.
Yeah, I'd like to add something about Norway that came out of that webinar at Stanford that Gary and I attended. And that was a comparison between Norway and China in the number of public charging stations. And that certainly would be relevant for the United States. So Norway is a very sparsely populated, and people, they have houses that allow private charging. And so China has a lot of public charging stations in comparison with Norway. So I wonder what that earlier slide that we had with all these dots, the two colors, I didn't know what the two colors refer to, but certainly here in the county, the climate group has a certain target for a number of charging stations. And in some cases, people will charge at home and use these charging stations very little. And in the video presentation, one of the Stanford professors confessed that he charged publicly because it gave free parking on campus.
On campus, it was cheaper.
Right. So it was like an other motive to park and to charge publicly, but he could easily done it at home and it wouldn't really make a financial difference.
Interesting thing, having been a planning commissioner, the city of Sebastopol, a little bit over 50% of the population of Sebastopol rents. So wouldn't necessarily be installing their own charging stations. City of Sunnyvale, 52% of the population rents, and many of them in apartments, and so don't have that option available. Most of our land use legislation now requires, if you build apartments, you have to make capacity for charging stations. At least the electricity has to be available in your parking lot to support EVs. So it's going to take a long time. So I think we'll be closer to the needs in China than we will the needs in Norway.
Well, a difference in China is that their state, they call it the state grid. If someone wants a charger, the state grid has it in their charter to go and bring the power to the charger, no matter where it is.
No matter where it is. That's almost like legislation that was in the state of Alaska for communication. No matter where it was in Alaska, it's out there. You have to create communication lines, regardless of the cost, and you can't burden the customer with the cost. The last bullet here I thought was really impressive. From 2011 till 2020, a 9-year period, a 75.7% drop in diesel sales in Norway.
There was one, go back to, Jerry, there was one other observation on this one here. While the EV growth is fantastic, the number of plugins is growing or holding stable at that, around that 20% number. So there's a certain group that want the BECS capability for long range or for multiple long trips, probably sort of like my use case where I drove out here to Cincinnati, right? So
and it's interesting because that paper that analyzed Hawaii versus Norway and their efforts in order to get EVs, the Hawaii information was interesting because in Hawaii you would think range anxiety is not an issue.
Right.
For some reason it was. I mean, nobody can drive that far. You can hit the water.
Yeah.
But that turned out to be an issue. Alan, you want to speak on this one too?
Yeah, this was something that sort of took me by surprise. I hadn't heard about it. Caltrans is installing, I think, a total of 12,
What
if I'm
the
not
article said 8.
mistaken, actual plugs at these locations, and they're free. There's no charge to charge. So it's pretty cool. It's mainly in the Central Valley, but if you're heading that direction, it sure looks like there's some nice new available charging.
Yeah, and some of these articles, when we read them, I find them difficult because this article talked about, oh, and they're using universal connectors.
Right.
No, there is no universal connector, but
well, that's yeah, exactly. You have to assume that's CCS. Yeah.
Well, no, when they didn't mean CCS. What they meant was they had every connector. So they
Oh yeah? No, I didn't pick up on that.
Yeah, because
they're like putting multi-plugs on them.
Teslas. Right, and Teslas are not.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
Okay, I sent you this one too. To
Yeah.
be honest with you, I reviewed it for quite a while, and I really didn't see the significance of the conclusions created by this study. It's sort of interesting. EVs are only have 6 minutes less operating time. The average distance is only 9 miles less, and the downtime is 23 minutes less than ICE cars. So yeah, it does make a lot of sense to electrify ride-hailing fleets, but did anybody really question that? I don't know.
No, actually, I read down to the end of the article and the end of the study. The study recommended that it wasn't cost effective to electrify ride-hailing fleets, and their recommendation that they would continue to be internal combustion engines. And I go, why did he send this?
Well, okay, then if that's the case, I missed that, and I disagree with it, because Lyft and Uber are personal cars. So if you, and that previous slide showed that it was cheaper to own an EV.
Yeah,
So
I
that
know.
doesn't make
And that's
sense.
why it didn't make any sense to me either.
Yeah.
I put it in the deck, but it'd be interesting if people find more articles on this that maybe do a better.
I believe this is the Rocky Mountain Institute, was it not?
Yeah. The
Yes.
article.
Charging.
No,
I believe the study was Rocky Mountain Institute.
Was
in
it?
GM.
Oh, it was
RMI.
RMI and GM created the report. You're right.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. And they used, it's actually interesting, they used 101 million miles worth of real world data that GM had collected.
I wonder whether ride-hailing cars are co-owned by 2 or 3 people, and people they kind of switch cars like some taxis did in New York to maximize their investment or minimize their cost, or is that plays a role at all or no?
Yeah, it wasn't clear from the study.
I am curious about how, Lyft and Uber influence their contractors' personal car buying decisions by, providing, lending and deals, kind of bulk deals and things like that. A couple of the Uber drivers that I know, they mathematically calculate out what they're doing at such high mileage. It's amazing. Like, they're driving 30 to 40,000 miles in the year.
Wow.
That's a little different. And that's one person's, but I am curious about whether or not cars ever get shared. I haven't heard of that before.
Who sent this one?
I think I did. It was just sort of interesting that Electrify America is funding a program to educate people about driving an EV. So it's good.
Yeah, I think that was part of the legislation for Electrify America when it came out.
You know what? I think you're right. Yeah.
Yeah, they had to do that. I saw one of these over at the Walmart in Rohnert Park, and I actually took a picture of the nameplate. These are input is 150 to 920 volts. Input is 480 volts, and output on both of those channels, CCS1 and CCS2, 150 to 920 volts, max 350 amps. So the infrastructure, even as close as the Walmart in Rohnert Park, is going for this, these 1,000-mile-an-hour charging capabilities. That's not the these are not level 2. these handles are liquid cooled, so quite awesome.
This one, Alan, you want to?
Yeah, okay, so I just thought this was sort of interesting that now we have I guess you would call it a smart charger, where you can control certain functions, and it could also be linked to some other organization, I assume, like PG&E or Sonoma Clean Power. So and it will have over-the-air updates. I don't know if you had that, but so it's sort of interesting that for those who want to play with their charging, as opposed to what you can do on your in your car, from your car, this is sort of a fun
And I dug a little deeper on this one as well. The article that you sent to me, the highlight was that it came with a Tesla adapter holster, which they thought was interesting. It showed the one video I went to showed how to install it. But here's the part that I didn't totally get. And DJ's response back on this is kind of like the TV sets in the refrigerator. It has high definition sound. It has a Bluetooth module, has a high definition camera, a microphone, SD card storage, temperature and moisture sensors, and USB ports. I wasn't sure, and I couldn't find any place on their site what they intended people to do with this.
Right. Yeah.
I agree. One-stop office.
It's a one-stop office. Yeah. Plug in and work from your car. Maybe that's it.
Yeah, I don't know.
This one, I might have picked this one up. That Rocky Mountain Institute thinks this is the big year for trucks, and in particular, heavy trucks. They thought last year was the year of demos, and this year is the year of deployments. That production trucks are going to be easy to come by. I didn't realize there's 70 models that were available. There's 85 models that they expect from 30 different companies for electric trucks this year. And then Tesla has pre-orders for their semis from Walmart, Pepsi, Anheuser-Busch, DHL, FedEx, UPS, Cisco, and Loblaw. I hadn't heard of Loblaw before. Tesla is going to have a hard time producing them. And the reason that Tesla is having a hard time producing them is that their trucks use 5 times the battery or 10 times the batteries that their cars do. And their margin isn't high enough to make the investment in the amount of capacity they have to make batteries. So they prefer selling the cars. They'd like to sell these, but they need more batteries. Volvo announced a new truck, Peterbilt, Workhorse in Kenworth began production this year. Daimler is planning for next year. So it's been pretty interesting. And the fact that utilities are building up enough capacity to charge larger vehicles.
So Loblaw's is the largest fleet in Canada.
Wow. Okay, thanks. And Amazon begins using Rivian for deliveries. They're doing testing this month or for 2 months, 150-mile range, and they plan to buy 100,000 Rivian vans. Now, these vans are custom designed vans that are more than just EVs. And what I find interesting about all this, and that we've maintained, is that the first electric vehicles were electrifying internal combustion engines. This one's actually a delivery van. It's a delivery van so that when the guy picks the box off here, it does all the electronic record keeping necessary. It does the route calculation for them. It has a whole bunch of features inside of it that are built from a computer point of view. And it does actually support a phrase that I had used in presentations, that EVs are computers on wheels. This one's really a computer on wheels.
They're testing those in LA.
What's that?
They're testing them in LA.
You're testing them in LA, okay.
Yeah.
And they plan to roll them all out by 2030, so 10 years from now. I thought it was really impressive that it took them 1 year to design the vehicle, test it, until they're gonna have delivery of the first units. That's pretty amazing. That says that the industry now has the tools to do this. And I put a link, by the way, to the video announcement here too on the presentation. Phoenix Motor Cars has delivered 2 Class 4 utility trucks to the Port of Oakland. And they're built here in California using E450 chassis. I'd never heard of this body company before. Caleb, do you know them?
No, that's not one I'm familiar with.
Right. So they're using lithium ion, 110-mile range with the DC fast charge capability. A lot of, when we worked for Motive, they didn't use DC fast charge. Instead, they were using 480 three-phase to dump at high current. Basically, it's the same thing.
The body itself, you're talking about the NAFED, the KNAPH. Yeah, they are a leading industrial body manufacturer. So it's just like it's kind of like the Santa Ana truck when they got their whatever that body was.
Well, supposedly they were making diesels, and this basically replaces them. And they expect a 75% reduction in maintenance and an 80% reduction in fuel. And that's why in a lot of places, I think what we're going to see in the next few years, and what we're seeing in articles, is that fleets are going to roll out much faster than we do in autos. And mainly because it's a question of, a profitability.
Well, and also you notice this was the Port of Oakland where, they have so many vehicles running around, diesel vehicles, that it'll help clear up the air.
Yeah, and they'll roll these out very fast if they start discovering that they work well and that they're saving money. I did put a little chart here because I needed to remember, class 4, is that what I think class 4 is? Because I don't know them by their classes, I know them by their weights. Andy, did you send this to me? No? Who sent this to me?
I don't think I did.
Okay, somebody got the notification that there's a new Bolt SUV that's going to be coming out. I had to dig quite a bit to find any information on it. It's bigger than the existing Bolt. Some of the reviews said that might make room for larger batteries. It's using the same battery that the current Bolt is using, so not GM's new battery. It comes with a sunroof, a roof rack, and the new Super Cruise hands-free driving, which includes lane changes. And the price around $42,000.
I think they pulled that Super Cruise technology from the Cadillac side of the organization.
Yeah.
I've seen a couple teasers lately because it's going to be announced tomorrow.
Tomorrow, that's right. It's Valentine's Day. Yes, I have that down as the last bullet. Yeah. So if you need to get a car for your honey, a little present, then tomorrow's the day that you can do that. I'm sure that's why they timed it. From you. This one you sent in, didn't you?
Who?
Maybe I sent it. Yeah, I was curious because Arcimoto did the talk with us a few months ago, and they've expanded their manufacturing space. Things are really moving along with three-wheeler, technology, it seems like, in general. And their stock's up. They're trying to get to volume that will get them down to 12,000. That's the part that I was kind of curious about. I'm not a motorcycle person, so I'm not really sure what the price point on these are. And all I see is like, wow, that's kind of high, and it has a little bit of limitation, but then again, it does look like a lot of fun, and it's not that high. So, but the scale is exciting. I'm excited for them.
Yeah, I'd say like a decent motorcycle price if you're going to go out and buy a motorcycle you're going to ride often. I mean, we're not talking like high-end Harleys or anything, but $10,000 is going to be kind of that threshold where you'd say that's a decent motorcycle, I would buy it. Like the general public who rides motorcycles, 10 grand is about that threshold. So for them to hit 12 with something that has a windshield and a windshield wiper and some, a little more functionality, I think they're going to be in a good place.
Yeah, and 2 seats where you don't have to hug, so you can
Yeah.
have a stranger come with you.
That's right.
The Harley Davidson is about $30,000. Their first
Indeed.
two-wheel vehicle, which seems to be awful high for the general public. But these guys have been shooting for a long time, around 12,000.
Yeah.
Is this a roll frame technology like that old Honda twin front wheels was, or the body rolls with the lean on a lean end?
No,
no,
not yet.
No.
They did just. I don't know if I saw this and I should have sent it on, but it was last week. Arcimoto did acquire a leaning three-wheeler technology company within the last month, and so I anticipate we'll see some leaning, some body roll leaning capabilities come out of them in the next year as a result of that acquisition.
And Sandy, I was going to say Sandy Monroe is working with
yeah,
Arcimoto, so we'll see some changes that he's recommending.
Yeah,
and he's very hot on them.
And as you can imagine, the weight, down on that kind of skateboard platform, it looks pretty unique in terms of the weight being kind of up front on the front two wheels and down low.
Yeah.
It's actually really well balanced. I've actually driven one of them, and they are a ton of fun. I mean, aside from the fact that they're very functional, but they feel very planted, and even though it was a prototype, it was very well controlled, and it's front wheel drive, which makes it a bit unique, so you get a lot of traction with them.
Well, even though Mark offered to deliver you one, so you didn't take him up on that, huh?
I didn't yet. No, I'm waiting for his $12,000 price to hit.
Yeah, okay.
Right now, I'd have to drop like $22,000 for one. It's not exactly worth it.
Well, and the other negative is if you're going 70 miles an hour, I think you've got less than a 40-mile range. So
yeah, absolutely.
Is that right? Okay. Yeah. All right.
My BMW i3 is almost the same size, and I could park it in almost as many places. So, but I could seat 4.
Who sent me in the Nissan camper?
I think I might have. So it's a nice transition or a nice usage for an electric van, which this NB200 you see. Speaking of Norway, I was there 3 or 4 years ago, whatever, and I saw a lot of NB200s, ENB200s, but unfortunately, it's only available in Europe. It's a shame. Don't know
But
why.
if you get creative, you can cut the front off your Leaf and glue it to the back of a regular NV200.
Yeah.
Well, and any idea the little more information on range and price of those? I'm moving to Europe in August.
Are you?
Yeah, I'm going to be European correspondent later this year.
Well, you're not leaving the club, are you?
No, I can't do that. Fortunately, the time works out so that I can now come at 6 o'clock in the evening instead of 10 in the morning.
with a 40K battery, it's not going to get too far.
Yeah, it seems like that might be about my speed as long as I can sit in a car seat these days.
I don't know, 40K
I mean,
three-wheeler surprised me that it wouldn't be a fairly good range then.
Yeah, that Envy wouldn't get you to Tahoe, just Sacramento, right?
Gas taxes, I can remember what those one was about. Oh, yeah. All right, I haven't seen this yet. Did you guys see it yet? $100 tax that we pay each year for our EVs? Anybody?
You've got it
Supposedly,
easy. I was paying 175 up in Washington.
well, okay. So anyway, beginning in July, July of this year. I thought it was last year for some reason. So that's what we haven't seen yet. So beginning this year, we're going to be paying $100 for zero emission vehicles. Part of this has to do with that presentation I gave saying what happens when we get more and more EVs, how you paying for the highways. 3/4 of the highway funding comes from fuel taxes. And it's been a problem for the last 10 years because the fuel economy keeps going up. And so there's less and less fuel being sold. And so there's been less and less tax collection compared to the number of vehicles on the road, the amount of damage and repair required. And yes, I did sign up for the next program. I have a dongle in my OBD connection. So I have to charge my car at a charge point station at least once a month to stay in the program for the next 6 months. And I don't know what they're going to prove because the 4 different methods they're using, I think they're all more complicated than what I pitched. So
it makes no sense to have the tax based on public charging. What about people who don't charge publicly?
Alan, that's exactly my point. I think they don't understand. The other part was the one which does make some sense. They've also tied it to insurance plans. So
okay, well,
you need to report your mileage and your insurance
right.
plan, and so then they would charge you for the miles that you've traveled during that. I don't know why they wouldn't do it in registration instead of insurance plans, but by the way, Buttigieg has basically been a proponent of road user charges across the country. So we may see it. I hate toll booths, but I don't mind paying for the road.
But you, like you said, Jerry, you could do that with an OBD dongle, right?
Yeah, but you know, Dom, and you weren't here in the last meeting or 2 meetings ago. I gave a talk which went over like a lead balloon on a number of topics, and one of them was how do you collect these taxes? And I said, geez, just send your mileage in with your registration, and then next year they'll charge you for it. They can send you a bill. It just requires a single database change at the state level, and it would be trivial to implement it. You don't need the equipment and the dongle. I put this one in because we had the QuantumScape, and this is where the first crash in the QuantumScape prices went because of StoreDot. Alan, did you send this one to me?
No, I don't think so.
Who sent StoreDot? Maybe I just saw it. Basically, this is an Israeli company, which shortly after, and I can't spell, nobody noticed I spent an ounce wrong. Extremely fast charging, 5 minutes for a full charge. And they say it has higher safety, better cycle life. They've solved all the swelling issues. Their focus, I believe, is in getting more silicon on the anode, and that everybody knew would work, but swelling is an issue, and they said they've solved that. And at that point, a lot of questions of what would happen, QuantumScape's announcement and other solid state battery companies. But the one bad part was these guys haven't actually done any tests other than internally, so they haven't done any independent testing. But supposedly they're writing their, they have their patents right now, and they have a company in China that will spin the batteries for them because there's no manufacturing change. It's just a chemistry change. Alan, yours?
Oh yeah, so this is sort of interesting. So BNSF is going to partner, well, I guess you call them partner trains. So with making a hybrid out of 3 locomotives with a diesel in front and back and the electric in the middle. And it will obviously help with the power, but also it will have regen braking, which is, in other words, they won't waste the energy when they have to brake like they do now. So I thought that was pretty good.
That's interesting because it's not just recovering energy from the electric, it just occurred to me, from the electric engine, but it's recovering energy from the diesel engines as well, because they've been pulling and they pull that energy back in again. One of the guys that we used to work with years ago was a train nut, and he was the one who told me that these diesel engines actually have heaters on the top of the diesel engine. So when they want to brake, they actually use regen already and then throw all the heat out in the air from the electric braking that they use. So this will be the first time they'll recover it. When you sent this to me, I go, well, that's not novel. We've had lots of electric trains. But it occurred to me, this is probably one of the first, or probably the first, electric train with batteries.
Pure battery, right.
Pure batteries. Yeah, and I missed that when I first read the articles, but I got it after I started putting the deck together.
Right.
So something interesting about that, throwing off the energy to heat during braking events. So if you look at the back of the Daimler Cascadia prototypes that are out running around right now, there's a section behind the cab that's just like a big stack, and that entire unit is a resistor bank from a locomotive, so that if the batteries are topped off, that's what it does to ensure that the braking capacity is the same through regen. They dump it off in heat through the back of the truck. I'm
going to speed up a little bit here because I just realized the time. Ellen, thank you. I forgot to put Volocopter on here. This was one of the European companies that's been working on electric transit, in particular for both deliveries and just for moving around inside cities. What's novel is that these guys are 2 years ahead of everybody in trying to get approval. And they're already working on approval in Europe. They just submitted in the FAA, and they expect as soon as the FAA approves, they're going to be in production and be doing air taxi service in some of the cities in the United States. I'm going to skip.
Yeah, can I say something about that? About that last slide. So, I mean, in a bigger picture, this goes in a direction of social separation of wealthy people who can kind of connect through the air in metropolitan areas where it's busy and you cannot really use the road reliably to get there in a short time. So there's that. It's not just a fun thing, but it's also kind of a futuristic picture of where mobility is going, right? In terms of who has access to what kind of mobility and how does that impact people's economic opportunities, that kind of thing.
Yeah, but I'll counter that, and I do want to move forward. I counter that with this. That's always the case, and we saw this with electric vehicles as well. Those who could afford $60,000, $70,000 got an electric vehicle. The price of the electric vehicles goes down. The used vehicles will start showing up. Eventually, it will be for everybody. But it's always the rich that end up both being able to afford the risk and have the convenience. I don't think this kind of stuff is all that valuable myself, but I put it in here because it's.
Well, I would hate to see this in my neighborhood.
Okay.
The other thing I'd like to, but since we're at the end of the presentation, I had a question about franchising laws. So some, I think in general, companies that produce only electric cars, they want to sell directly to the consumer, bypassing a dealer. While these other companies that add electric vehicles, they use their existing dealer network. And I wonder whether anybody has something to say on that topic. Because certainly if certain states don't allow that kind of sale, Right, so there's a state difference, direct sales from cars to consumers. You need to go to a dealer. And how would this impact like local tax base, local buying, if everybody starts buying their cars from a factory far away and there's no middleman?
Well, I'm gonna hold off on that. And if we want to have the discussion on that, the next session, we're running late, so I want to make sure that Andy has some time here.
Okay.
So I'm gonna stop my sharing, and now I have forgotten what I have to do in order to, can one of my co-hosts tell me what I need to do in order to allow Andy to take control?
I think just make me a co-host. I'm trying to share now, but it
Oh,
won't
no,
let-
now you can do it. I found it. Go ahead.
There we go. Okay. All right, let's see here. Okay, I've never done this before through Zoom, so I've got a couple slides to show you, but let's see, will not be recorded. Screen broadcast, start broadcast. Let's see. Okay, here we go. Something's happening. I would have played with this earlier, but let's see. I'm just trying to display my.
Well, you lost it, Andy. You're on an
Yep.
iPad, aren't you? You're in iOS.
I am on an iPad. Yeah, iOS. Is that a problem?
Do
or-
that again, and I'll tell you what to do.
Okay, good. So here I am, share content,
Yeah.
and I've got, so photos, I hit photos.
Do you want photos?
And
Okay.
Here we go. Okay, allow access to all photos. All right, let's see here. Give me.
If that doesn't
Okay, I had it.
work, I have a backup just in case.
Okay, well, I won't get too carried away with all my pictures here, but I'll just throw one up and start talking here. All right, here we go.
So far, we don't see anything.
Okay, there we go. Is that done? Let's see if that comes up. There we go.
Oh, very good.
Good, good, good. All righty. So here we are. Yeah. So basically, I'm 100% battery, and we have, oh, got to count, but probably 5 or 6 electric bikes or motorized bikes, as well as scooters, as well as you can see a Tesla in the background. So, but bikes, yeah, I kind of have a love and hate with bikes. Right now, I'm just totally in love with bikes. In fact, I consider it a failure if I get in my car. So with this bike or other electric bikes that I have, I can get around most places in Marin County, we're here in Tiburon, as quick as you can in a car. So, but my love and hate affair with bikes started, I guess, probably when I was, probably somewhere around 8 years old. I lived up at the top of the Berkeley Hills and had to go to school on my bike every day. And I loved going downhill. I could get there in about 5 minutes, but coming back took about 45 minutes on an old Schwinn Varsity. And boy, I could not wait until, and that was my only way really to get to school other than the bus. So I could not wait until I became 15 and got my first motorcycle license. And then that was the end of my biking for probably, wow, about 6 years. And but anyway, my first, so the first time I got an electric bike was really a major kind of revelation. And anybody that hasn't driven an electric bike, I mean, they're just a lot of fun. It's, can be kind of a combination between a motorcycle and a bicycle. But so 19 years ago, I was down in Southern Cal at the beach, and they had electric bikes for rent. Actually, they were for sale, and I somehow convinced them to rent it to me for a couple hours. And boy, after that, I was hooked. I just loved it. And where they're great is when you're going up a hill. Like if you're on the beach where it's flat, regular bikes, pretty much fine if you're just out to have a good time and have some fun. Now, when you start getting into transportation, an electric bike will roughly go about twice the speed as a regular bike when you're using it for transportation. So basically about half the time to get somewhere on an electric bike versus a non-electric. So, and again, with the hills, really a big difference. So 19 years ago, I rode that electric bike and I just loved it. Of course, loved going up the hills, but unfortunately the battery went dead in less than about 30 minutes. And now You've got the opposite. You've got an exercise bike that'll give you twice the workout as a regular bike because of the weight. So then I was in Costco in San Francisco 17 years ago, and they had an electric bike for sale. And let's see if I can pull it up here. I've still got it after 17 years. Let's see. So stop share. Okay, now let's go one more time. I'm going to go to photos and going to go to my favorites. Let's see here. And let's pull it up. Here it is, right here, I believe. Okay, done. There we go. So as again, when I say everything's electric, even all the kids, they're all electric too. So he's got his little electric Tesla right there. But I don't know if you can see this in the back. This is the first bike that I bought. And that was about, I think $800 from Costco, built in China. And it was just a great little bike, and it still is. You can see in the back, you've got the motor. It's called a rear hub motor. So again, $800. This is, pretty much the cheapest electric bike you're going to find. And you can see the big battery right in the middle. And I got a better picture, but that's a 26-volt battery. Volts do matter. So my other bikes are all either 36 or 48 volts, and it definitely makes a difference in terms of power. So let's see, and I guess there's a number of things that are great about electric bikes, but one is it's just plain a heck of a lot of fun. If you get on a regular bike and you ride flat, that can be pretty fun. But once you start going up a pretty steep hill, it becomes a lot less fun. In fact, the least fun is having to get off and walk your bike up the hill. And with electric bike, I've never gotten off the bike ever to walk it up any hill. And I have another one I'll show you. I don't know if you can see this one over here. This is the Opti bike. So from $800, my next electric bike purchase was this Opti bike here. From $800 to $11,000. Whoa, a pretty big jump. So that's the Opti bike, and I've got a couple of them. So that's kind of the ultimate. And it sounds like a lot of money, but if you ride this basically replaces your car in about 90% of the situations. And then there's just, so they're just a ton of fun, but they're also great exercise. I get more, so 17 years of electric bike. When I started 17 years ago, nobody had them. And I was able to fool a lot of people. I'd have more fun, on a bike trail and, somebody in the full spandex, somebody close to an Olympic level racer, I'd be able to pull up right next to them and then just zip right on by them. And back in those days, they didn't know what was going on many times. And so in terms of great exercise, trying to just, go as fast as you can to, one, stay ahead of these guys. So you do get great exercise too, but you can control how much you want. If I'm in a suit and a tie and I'm going to a meeting, then I'm going to do the minimum so that I'm not all sweaty when I get there. And then they're just, and then I was going to say, interrupt me anytime if you got any questions. This is
what's being displayed right now is a zoomed in picture of a beautiful little baby.
Yeah, that's little Hank there, who loves to go. They come over every weekend, and that's the first thing they want to do is go for a bike ride. So they just love it. And I'm not sure if you're seeing what I'm seeing, but the Opti bike, I'm looking at the rear wheel of that. Okay. That was the. So here's my very first bike, and if you can see that, the little Chinese $800, still got it. And then here's the Opti bike, almost 10 years old, about $11,000.
Which model is that?
Well, so this Opti, I have two of them. This one here, and I've got a couple more pictures, is the 850. So that's 850 watts, 36 volts. It has, and we'll get more into detail on all the different components and, the benefits. But the Opti bike, pretty much, they've called it, they should change the name, but they call it the Ferrari of electric bikes. Should be the Tesla of electric bikes. But again, if you're going to be replacing your car or using it, and again, it opens up horizons. Because again, a lot of people, especially our age, we grew up on bikes. They're a lot of fun. All you got to do is get on a bike once and start going up a hill. And after about 5 minutes, you go, well, enough of this. So
a couple of things that you said, Andy, I have questions on.
sure,
You talked
please.
about different voltages and then the wattage.
Yes,
So
yeah.
the performance of the bike is determined by the voltage, or is it determined by the wattage?
Well, both. You know, they're a combination. You multiply your volts times your amps, and that'll give you, you know. So of course, the more volts you have, the less amps you need to get the same power. Yeah. So in terms of, so basically, let's see. I can give you well, I don't know if the pictures matter so much. Let's see, I've got my little notes here. I didn't want to miss too much. I'm going to zip through a little because I'm going to get more into the details shortly about voltages and all the different class 1, class 2, class 3, you know, brakes, tires, you know, torque sensors, motor location, suspension, and then service are listed at the bottom. But so not just a whole lot of fun, not just great exercise, but then just a great way to get around. Like I live in Tiburon, so I can either zip the bike. I can be in the city in 45 minutes from where I am, which is not much different than a car, you know, on bike lanes most of the time. And as you guys are probably aware, there's a tremendous amount of bike lanes or, you know, very bike friendly ways to get around, you know, almost the whole Bay Area. So yeah, just a lot of fun, a great exercise. And then like if you want to zip over to the city, you can either ride it over to the city and take the ferry back, or take the ferry over to the city. And then when you're there, you've got the bike to zip around on. And and then the other benefits is they cost almost nothing. You know, there's no registration, there's no insurance. And, you know, electric bikes now have grown dramatically. It's at the point where almost half the bikes I see now are electric. But so, yeah. And then, you know, in terms of parking, there's never an issue with parking because and, you know, having a bike that costs $11,000, most of the time I'm asking the business or whatever, do you mind if I just bring it right inside the front door? Because that is, you know, the biggest problem I would say would be theft. And so that bike, almost never will I leave it alone anywhere. And people come by and look at the components. So going back to that Opti bike, we'll get a little bit more into the technology. That's called a roll-off. So the rear hub on the Opti bike is a 14-speed roll-off. You know, it's internal gears, and you have just a little shifter right on the knob you turn like a motorcycle throttle that gives you your 14 gears. So, but yeah, just that hub alone is about $1,500. So it's a bike that not a lot of people have seen, but when they see the components that are on it, they'll go to extreme, you know, efforts to get it. So that's you know, that's a big problem. There is a lot of anticipation that, and right now it's hard to buy a bike, period, let alone electric bike, because there's such a demand. You know, mostly now, I guess, more for exercise or just getting out. But there's a big concern with COVID that people aren't going to want to get back on a bus or even going to be concerned about taxis. And so people are either going to be, you know, driving their cars alone, or an ideal way, again, is with the electric bike, you know, both for, you know, for your health, but just, you know, when I get in my car and drive, you know, even though the Tesla, it'll kind of drive itself, it's a somewhat stressful situation. You've got this big giant thing, you got to look at all four corners, and it's just, whereas on a bike, it's just, again, so much more relaxing. It's just, you know, it feels good to get on the bike, the fresh air. And so, so yeah, any more questions, fire away, and I can start diving into more details on what you'd look for in a bike. And did Jerry, answer kind of the question that you had?
Yeah, and also as you're going through this on the details, how do you control the speed? Is it done through the pedals?
Yeah,
is it done
there
through
are two ways. There's two ways to control the speed, either just a straight throttle, or you have, you know, it's based on how hard you pedal. It's called a torque sensor. Well, there's actually two types. There's two types that will work off of the pedal. I think the torque sensor is the best because the more pressure you put on the crank, you know, the more power you'll get. Whereas some of the less expensive ones, it's either it's on or it's off. You know, either when you start pedaling, it'll kick in and give you the full power, and then when you stop. So definitely a torque sensor, one that allows you, the harder you pedal, the more power it'll give you. The lighter you pedal, the less it'll give you. My preference was, so the first bike that I showed you, that was a Pedigo. And Pedigo is probably, they claim that they're the largest producer of electric bikes. They're based in LA, big operation. They have many dealers all over. And so that was the cargo bike, that first bike that I had up there, which I could pull back. But so that has both. That has both the torque sensor and it has the throttle. And my choice, you know, would be to have both. There's a lot of benefits, you know, of both of them. The throttle's great. Like if you're, well, like, you know, I've got those 3 kids on there. So that bike, you know, with me and everything combined, is over 400 pounds. So it is, if I've got 3 kids and I'm on a hill and I want to take off going uphill, it's a little hairy to try to jump on the bike, pedal real quick enough till the motor kicks in and then starts pulling you. So having a throttle, you can just very easily give it the throttle and just kind of take off. And then when the bike's going a couple miles an hour, then you can, you know, pedal more. Now, with the torque sensors, typically they've got about 5 levels of, you know, power. So, you know, you can have 20%, 40, 60, 80, and then if you put it on level 5, you'll get when you're pedaling, you'll get the full power, the same as if you had the throttle wide open. So there's, you know, the laws have changed. When I first bought the OptiBike, they didn't have the classes. You know, so now there's class 1, there's class 2, and there's class 3. And that'll be a number that's directly on the bike. And class 2 is what that cargo bike, the Pedigo, the first one that I was showing that had, you know, the 4 of us on it. And then depending, you know, if you want to go on dirt or you want to stay on the, because of the new laws that have come out, and unfortunately, I'm afraid a lot more restriction is going to come out because, so on the OptiBike, so this is the 850, the one you're looking at there. I ended up finding somebody that had a brand new 1100, which is now 1100 watts instead of 850 watts, and 48 volts instead of 36 volts, which means it's substantially more powerful. That bike will go over 30 miles an hour pretty easily. So because of that, you know, you have to be kind of extra careful because pedestrians aren't used. Most people are not used to a bike going 30 miles an hour. And I've had so many situations. It's funny. I'll be going, and when I ride my bike, I go out for exercise or I'm doing it for transportation and I'm trying to get there pretty much as fast as I can. So, you know, many times. So what's nice also is I'm able to ride right in the middle of the street because the bike will do 30 miles an hour. So if the speed limit is 30 or less, I've got the whole lane to myself, which is a lot safer than having cars come by and want to pass you. So, but I've had so many funny experiences, like where somebody will be sitting at a, you know, at a stop sign. I'll be coming along, they'll pull right out in front of me, figuring I'm going to be too slow. And then, you know, kind of irritates me a little. And I'm out there for exercise. So I'll be right on their tail. I mean, they'll be going, you know, 30 and a 30, and I'll be just literally right on their tail and a lot of times after a while, they'll just finally pull over and let me go. But it is, people don't expect, you know, the bike to be going that fast. And so it is a concern if you're on a bike path. So I would always slow way down. If I'm passing anybody on a bike path, I will slow down to maybe 15 miles an hour to most and a super wide berth. So because that is the concern, the extra speed. And because of the extra speed and the extra weight, electric bikes are going to weigh at least twice what a conventional bike would weigh because of the motor and the batteries. So you need really good brakes. I think you need really good tires. And So, getting into brakes, you definitely want disc brakes. You don't want anything other than disc brakes on something that weighs 400 pounds that's going 30 miles an hour. But you're going to want to, and especially going down a steep hill. So I prefer hydraulic. There are some that are, mechanical, but definitely you want some good disc brakes. And then I think a suspension is really important too. The OptiBike is full suspension, front and rear, which makes it ideal also for off-road if you want to do dirt riding. But because of the weight and because of the speed, it's really nice. Well, and just because of your rear end too, it is really nice to have a suspension. And of course, if you want to go, off-road. So, and you guys have probably noticed, I mean, like I was mentioning earlier, there's so many electric bikes that are out there now. But the thing that's a little scary, a lot of people that are buying them that I see are people that, you might almost break it down into two kind of bicycle people. The ones that are on their racing bikes and the spandex and they're in a group and going like crazy. And then you've got more than just two groups, but there's one. And then the other is a bunch of, older people, in their 40s, 50s, 60s that aren't in that good of a shape, but now they have electric bike. Gee, they can just go anywhere. And I do see some, pretty heavy electric bikes going really faster than they should have on the pedestrian trail. And so I think there's going to be more and more regulation, again, because people, they'll look behind, they'll see a bike coming, but then they'll step right in front of you because they don't realize, you're going maybe twice as fast as a standard bike. So definitely, you ought to be careful there. So
Can I ask a question?
Please.
Yeah, so I grew up in Amsterdam.
Yes.
So that's where I learned to bike, and didn't bike for quite a while, but I started biking maybe 15 years ago again here in the area. And so I started getting not professionally interested in the whole phenomenon, but I started studying things a bit here and there. And I'm taking these classes with the University of Amsterdam has a mobility institute. And they focus on bicycling, and they have a course that is called Unraveling the Bicycling City, which is like an analysis of Dutch towns and what they did to get that level of bike participation. So one thing that comes up is the subjective experience of biking and the social kind of context. And so they claim that biking in Holland exposes people to each other. So you see each other better, you interact more, you talk more, you can see people's eyes better, you communicate in all kinds of other ways. And I wonder how that is with this electric biking. In Holland, you have a special model that I have never seen here in the States. It's called a grandmother bicycle. And you sit upright, you're not kind of bent over, and it is, you look around, you communicate, you navigate the town, and you're very visible to each other. So I'm kind of interested in your experience here. When you bike, do you feel you connect differently with your fellow citizens in comparison, say, with maybe the two bikes, the Chinese cheaper model and the American model, the faster model, in comparison with the electric vehicle? Do you have anything to say about your kind of social experience?
Sure do. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. Well, on bikes, of course, right. You can go any speed you want. I mean, electric bike, you can go 2 miles an hour. And sure, it's an excellent way to be able to, you can slow down and talk to anybody. And it's kind of nice because it's less threatening. I think if you're on a bike and you stop and you just say hi and start talking to somebody, it's a little less threatening if somebody walks up to you. And then also on the bike, you can, easier for you to get away quicker if you're talking to somebody and just say, okay, I need to get out of here. But so the Belvedere Police, you can see they just bought, and this is a good little cargo bike too. And I can tell you a little bit about this one, and because it's got most of the things that I think are good to get on an electric bike. Now, electric bikes now still, you can get one up for $800-900, and they've got them up to $20,000 now. My 1150, the more expensive Opti bike that I bought, retailed for $18,000, and that is actually the bike. If I don't have all the kids, that's the one that I ride myself, and that's just a blast. But yeah, no, it's perfect to be able to slow down and talk to people, and that's Belvedere Police got it primarily because they got it right after all this, kind of Black Lives Matter and just the whole thing with the police. So to be more, he's there, he's able to go meet with the people. They see him, he's the chief, stop and talk. And that was really the purpose. I think that article might say it too, was basically, just allows, that much more direct connection. So this bike has a lot of, what you'd want. And again, it all depends on price. So the components that you have, you do want to get, like I said, probably a little more heavy duty, higher quality components than on a regular bike because of the speed and the weight. The ideal scenario to me, this bike, I don't know if you can tell, in all the Opti bikes, the motor is built into the crank. When I expand this, can you guys see the bigger picture? Does that look big? Yeah. So the motor is built into the crank. So, it's a lot of the same stuff that would apply to an electric car or anything powered by, batteries. It's, by getting the weight low, so you can see the motor is, it's balanced, like just talking about the Tesla, something that makes it so good is it's about a 50-50 weight balance, equal weight on the front and rear wheel, which is ideally what you want for anything, I think, pretty much. And then you want the weight low. So you want it in the center and low. And then by the electric motor being the crank, now you've got all your gears in the back and you're able to, use the whole derailleur. Typically, this is about a 7-speed derailleur. You don't need as many gears in an electric bike as you do with a standard because of, the power that the motor has. So a lot of bikes, and certainly the less expensive ones, will have a hub motor. And I don't know if you remember the first one I showed you, the Chinese one, that has a rear hub motor. But of course, you're not taking any benefit of the gears right there. So, and the gears do provide quite a benefit because, these bikes have some power, but they do and they don't. You're talking about 1 horsepower, usually not much more than that. So ideally, if you can get away from a hub motor, if you're going to do a hub motor, much better on the rear than it is on the front tire.
Andy, you have an idea how much this one costs?
I do, yeah. This is a pretty high quality one. And again, it's a cargo bike, and you can set these up a number of different ways. Like on mine, see, I've got the seat on the back where you can put, 2 or 3 kids, or you can do the panniers. Yeah, this I think was about $5,600. Yeah, right there. $56.47. And
there it is, yeah.
So I looked at that one before I bought the Pedigo. I was comparing this and the Pedigo for the cargo bikes, and the cargo bikes are nice, like that Pedigo, the one you first saw with me and the 3 kids. Like I said, that holds 400 pounds of humans. That's what it's rated for, and you can put more, usually exceed the ratings, without. So on that bike, you can carry a lot of stuff. You can carry 4, 5, 6 big bags of groceries. Mine also had a front rack as well as the rear rack. So yeah, very, very practical, for that. So, the hub motor on the front wheel is the worst because you don't have as much weight on the front wheel. And sometimes that front wheel will start spinning, and that's, from the power, not a great situation. So again, in the crank is the best. And then of course, the higher voltage is just going to mean, more power. And then of course, amp hours. The more amp hours, the greater distance. Everybody always asks, how far can I go on the bike? The OptiBike, the 1150, the most expensive, that 18,000, actually came with 2 batteries. It's 48 volts and it's 30 amp hours. It's a lot of juice. And with that, I was able to ride the bike completely around Lake Tahoe, and I was able to ride it with a bunch of pretty much Olympic class, bicyclers. I mean, they all had, their $15,000, used to call them a 10-speed road bike, and they're all dressed in their spandex. And normally there's no way I couldn't even dream, and they're all younger than me. I couldn't even dream of keeping up with these guys. But with the electric bike, I mean, I can ride with anybody. There's nobody that can, the only people that can beat me is going downhill. I'm not that crazy. I won't go 40 miles an hour downhill. But for a while I was riding with, you get together with a group of, these basically bicycle racers. So there's no way in a million years you keep up with them on a regular bike. But an electric bike, yeah. So I can literally go with anybody. And yeah, class 1, 2, and 3. So where I've seen a large adoption has been with, dirt bikes, off-road. So I've seen maybe the most bikes that have come out, and it seems, I don't have the statistics, that, that's one of the most popular uses is putting, in most cases, you'll see the center motor drive on a dirt bike. Now, the laws are in California, you can't have a throttle off-road, which is too bad, because the throttle to me is, if OptiBikes only have a throttle, this bike here that Jason Wu has only has pedal assist. The most common is just pedal assist, and that is a class 1 bike, and that's, what most countries approve is the class 1 to go pretty much anywhere. And so that's a minimum, I think it's 250 watts of power, and it can't have a throttle. And yeah, I guess they limit the power is how they, and it's supposed to not go more, they're not supposed to go legally more than 20 miles an hour. At 20 miles an hour, they're supposed to cut off. But, like the, and 20 miles an hour might sound good, but, again, if you're using it for commuting, number one, I don't want cars passing me up. I want to be in the center lane with them. And I want to get, to where I'm going, So, and that means,
Andy, could you stop for 1 second? And since you mentioned class 1, 2, and 3, I'm not sure I'm getting what makes a class. So is it a combination of what the controls are, what the speed is, and something else?
Yeah, it's got to do with power, speed. Well, power and speed are probably very similar. More power, more speed. It's got to do with the top speed that it'll go, and it's got to do with whether it has a throttle or it's only, torque. Torque has a throttle a torque sensor. So so that's class 1. You can pretty much use it anywhere, and the big number, it'll be right on. That's a little sticker. It'll be right on the bike. And then class 2 could be this. Class 2 I think can go up to 500 watts from 250. Supposed to still stop at 20 miles an hour, but it can have a throttle. And then class 3 is, and so those 2 are legal, I think, on city streets. Now, I've never had a problem ever with the police. A lot of people felt that I was, cruising around at 25, 30 miles an hour, that I was gonna, the only time I ever had a problem is I was gonna ride on Mount Tamalpais on Thanksgiving. They had this big turkey ride, and it's, pretty steep off-road. And I was going with a couple friends, and a ranger was right there. And he, bang, looked right at my bike, says, "No throttle, nope, not allowed." Only time ever that I've had anybody ever say, that I couldn't, drive it where it was. So class 3 is kind of an open class. I guess that's something that has more than 500 watts, that has a throttle. And so I think technically probably both my OptiBikes are class 3. And again, it hasn't been a problem yet where somebody goes, wait a minute, class 3 is not, or, only class 1's allowed here. Again, off-road, that could happen. Or, class 1 and class 2 only, but I think, the potential is there. So it's good to know where the, what, depending what you want to use it for. And then the other issue, becomes important is service. So, electric bikes are kind of like electric cars. The motor doesn't require any service. The batteries don't require any service. And those are, the electronics really doesn't. So you just got your standard, chain and tires and brakes, and they do go through brakes fairly quick because you're, again, stopping something at potentially 400 pounds or more than that, going 25, 30 miles an hour. That definitely is going to wear brakes out quicker than, of course, the typical bike that might weigh 20 pounds that, you're not going more than 15, 20 miles an hour on. So,
so even when it's in-wheel motor, there is no regen then, huh?
There's no regen. Yeah, they've talked about it for ages. It would be a gimmick. It's just not enough. What it would require to make it regen, it's not worth it. You would not get enough benefit back. You'd add weight, you'd add complexity, and so it's yeah, it would be nice. The regen would be nice, to kind of preserve your brakes, and but no, there's none of them have regen, and I've been told there is on the OptiBike website. So this guy Jim Turner is the owner of of OptiBike, and again, that's pretty much the best. And they've advanced since my bikes. The last electric bike I bought, well, I guess was the Pedigo, which was maybe 3 years ago. Then the OptiBike, one of them is 8 years old, and the other one of them is probably 10 years old. So yeah, they keep improving. But then again, there's so many bikes out there now. Getting into range. So that is, I think it's important because when the battery goes dead, it doesn't go dead immediately. It just starts getting weaker and weaker. But when it goes dead, now you've got a bike weighing at least twice what a regular bike would weigh. So you're definitely, they're no fun when the battery goes dead. Although you still, you can still ride at home. So yeah, it's the same with cars. It's crazy the range that people say their cars will go and the range they'll really go. And it just all depends, obviously, how much throttle you're using, how much of the battery and motor that you're using. And so by having the two batteries, again, the bikes are, tremendous. The other thing that I use it for a lot, I guess you're talking about socially interacting. I also am really involved in real estate. So I'm always out looking at real estate, and especially Tiburon, Belvedere, got a lot of narrow little streets and hills. When I go on brokers tour, the brokers will go tour every week, all the new listings. Or even if you just go on a Sunday open, which they haven't had those for a while, on a bike, you can always park. You can just zip right up. You can go anywhere. It's just a much better way to go do, a broker's tour. Or when you're looking for properties, I can go up and down kind of anybody's driveway. If it says no trespassing, I won't. But otherwise, you've got a lot of long driveways, and I just zip right up any driveway. So it's just an ideal way also to just kind of, explore, look for, if you see a little fire trail anywhere, you just, hop on it and go. So,
right, so let's see if you've got more, Andy. Good. If not, let's wait for some questions from folks.
Yeah, if you guys have any questions, I could talk about them all day long. I certainly do love it. It's I could go on and on. I can't tell you how much fun I have though when some guy will be on his racing bike, and I'll pull up next to them and pass them, and they'll look at you and they go, wait a minute, this old bike keep passing me. And you'll see them really start to go. I'll let them kind of catch up with me, almost get near me, then I'll pull ahead again. And it keeps me in shape, keeping up with these guys, and I just enjoy it. It's
And I see in the chat that Zeno's also posted that there's a webinar coming up for Sonoma Clean Power on electric bikes.
I hadn't heard about that. Yeah, but and then I guess an ideal way to do it.
Rebates.
Excuse me.
It had info about rebates.
Rebates. Yeah, that's amazing. Boy, 1,500. Already you can't get an electric bike. I mean, they're sold out. They don't have them in the stores. And, they're saying I've called a few bike shops and they say, put me on the waiting list. They go, we're 6 months out. Nah, we're not even going to put you on a waiting list. So if they throw in, so I don't know how that 1,500 is going to work, because they've got some decent electric bikes under $1,500. I mean, I would never buy one. As much as I use it, I want the safest, I want the best quality. As much as I use it, it doesn't matter that I spend another $5,000 if I'm going to use it for 10 years instead of my car. I mean, it saves me so much money right there. But the other big issue though would be service, because like for OptiBike, I've had them as long as I've had them, sometimes I got to send a battery back. I got to send a motor back. I'm a pretty good mechanic, but you have to be a pretty good mechanic to, pull the motor out of the bike and send it back. So if you're not really handy yourself, we're having somebody that can service it locally. And that's really the biggest reason I bought that Pedigo, because Pedigo is not the highest quality. It's, it's middle of the road, and it's decent. It has some good features, but they had a shop, they'd opened up a shop right in Tiburon. So the ability to just, if anything's wrong with the bike, just bring it to them and, have it fixed. That was, so I think the local service could be pretty important if you're not handy. But
we got some more questions here. Hang on. More questions?
And I don't have to tell you, it costs nothing to charge it. I mean, it's pennies to charge the thing. Yeah, it takes 4 to 6 hours to charge a dead battery. And of course,
so I'm gonna push us along because we're losing folks pretty quickly right now. So just the last couple of slides here. I posted one interesting link, which is a comparison between the Tesla batteries and solid state batteries. I was kind of surprised to look at that review. The other links I don't have any new links, but if you guys find some, send them along and I'll stick them on there. Next meeting is March 13th. And hopefully Alan's going to talk to us about charging networks. Andy, thanks for covering electric bikes. One of these days it would be nice to have just a list of, we've seen the ones that you have so far, but I know there's a large variety. It would be great to have a layout of the different ones. Now that you've educated us about the dimensions of electric bikes, figuring out, what do we want to look at as far as the speed and the power and the controls that go along with it, as well as how well it rides. So, and
I would definitely recommend, so I'd test drive a lot of them, and I'd try to, rent the thing or borrow it for a couple hours and really, I'd really spend some time, because it'll become clear after you've had it for a little bit. But then depending, because, the range of the batteries, like, I mean, electric bike, you can ride the thing 3, 4, 5, 6 hours. You don't really get that tired. So you may want a bigger battery if you're going to do longer rides like that. Or certainly, doing some big hills. Well,
thanks for picking up the slack here, Andy, and doing a presentation.
Any questions, of course, just let me know. I'm happy to, a lot more I could have said, but I'm happy to share. And I'm a total advocate, so I'd love to see more of them out there. Just not going over 30 miles an hour on the bike trail. Gonna get me in trouble.
All right. Anything else anybody has as last parting thoughts? Otherwise, we'll shut down the meeting. All right. See you all next month then. And somebody think about being president.
Thanks, Andy.
All right. Thanks, Andy.
Thank you. See ya.
Hey, Jerry.
Yeah.
Jerry, can I talk to you for a second?
Sure. Let me turn the recording off. Just a second.
Maybe Sonia.
Yeah.
Are you still there? Good. Just a second.
Yeah.
Let me get back to where I was. Let me turn the recording off though, if I can find where that is. Pause and